Good morning. Instead of moving forward in our Read 180 book today, we're going to take a break from that and read a different dystopian short story. This story is called Harrison Bergeron by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. It is dystopian because it exists in a world where the future has gone wrong in some way, and you're going to find out how pretty quickly. It is kind of a darker story like The Lottery, so we have to approach it with a little bit of maturity. But I think you might also get a bit of a laugh out of it because it's kind of comedic in just how strange and silly it seems. So this is one of my favorite dystopian short stories. It's a good laugh if you can see that Kurt Vonnegut is being kind of silly with a dark sense of humor. So let's read this story together. I might have to break it up into a couple different videos. So it begins like this. The year was 2081, and everybody was finally equal. They weren't only equal before God and the law, they were equal every which way. Nobody was smarter than anybody else. Nobody was better looking than anybody else. Nobody was stronger or quicker than anybody else. All this equality was due to the 211th, 212th, and 213th Amendments to the Constitution, and to the unceasing vigilance, which means they're paying attention all the time, of agents of the United States Handicapper General. This is kind of a strange word here. That means that they're in charge of giving other people handicaps or other people disabilities. And this was written in 1961, so you're going to see instead of disability, you'll see the word handicap over and over again. They mean disabilities. Some things about living still weren't quite right, though. April, for instance, still drove people crazy by not being springtime. And it was in that clammy month that the HG men took George and Hazel Bergeron's 14-year-old son, Harrison, away. It was tragic, all right, but George and Hazel couldn't think about it very hard. Hazel had a perfectly average intelligence, which meant she couldn't think about anything except in short bursts, and George, while his intelligence was way above normal, had a little mental handicap radio in his ear. He was required by law to wear it at all times. It was tuned to a government transmitter. Every 20 seconds or so, the transmitter would send out some sharp noise to keep people like George from taking unfair advantage of their brains. So every 20 seconds, his thoughts get interrupted by some painful noise because, again, they want all this equality. They're trying to make the entire world equal. George and Hazel were watching television. There were tears on Hazel's cheeks, but she'd forgotten for a moment what they were about. On the television were ballerinas. A buzzer sounded in George's head. His thoughts fled in panic like bandits from a burglar alarm. That was a real pretty dance, that dance they just did, said Hazel. Huh? Said George. That dance. It was nice, said Hazel. Yep, said George. He tried to think a little about the ballerinas. They weren't really very good, no better than anybody else would have been anyway. They were burdened with sash weights and bags of birdshot, and their faces were masked so that no one, seeing a free and graceful gesture or a pretty face, would feel something like the cat drug in. George was toying with the vague notion that maybe dancers shouldn't be handicapped, or maybe they shouldn't be given disabilities. But he didn't get very far with it before another noise in his radio, your radio, scattered his thoughts. So these ballerinas, they have to wear heavy weight. That's what this birdshot is. They have to wear masks to slow them down so that nobody can be prettier or faster or more athletic than anybody else. George winced. So did 2 out of the 8 ballerinas. Hazel saw him wince, which means to be like, ugh, like pain. Having no mental handicap herself, she had to ask George what the latest sound had been. Sounded like somebody hitting a milk bottle with a ball-peen hammer, said George. I think it would be real interesting, hearing all the different sounds, said Hazel, a little envious. All the things they think up. Said George.